So Fred, let's talk
Yes.
about this. Let's talk about this Pfizer vaccine here.
I'm really sorry. I've been doing work with transition teams all day today, so I'm sort of I didn't get much sleep all day yesterday for the news, and then
we're glad you carved out a half hour for us. We really do appreciate it because I know how busy you are.
This is a great day, you guys. It really is a truly great. I mean, yesterday was a great day. I heard the news on the DSMB, yesterday, and wow, what a tremendous breakthrough.
Well, once you get through the show, you can treat yourself to a glass of wine, So
already had some champagne last night.
Oh, okay, great. Right. Well,
so the vaccine they're saying in the trial so far, they're saying the vaccine's 90% effective. I just heard it's 2 doses taken 21 days apart. Do you suppose we're going to know? I mean, how long the antibodies, the immunity lasts, or because we've heard some cases of some people with this thing, they don't show any antibodies after 6 months after they've had it. So that means they have to go get another shot every 6 months. I mean, what does it mean?
There are a couple of things that we still don't know, that we're still trying to figure out, obviously, and we're probably going to close out the trial at the end of this month. So they'll have 164 cases by the end of this month. That's the end of the trial date close. They may or may not allow Pfizer to continue on. It'd be better if we kept everything sealed and before we opened up and revealed everything to the sponsor company, just so we have better statistics. However, everyone's really eager to kind of see what things really look like in terms of the other endpoints, which include severity of disease, some of the durability questions you're asking, as well as transmissibility and mortality, which of course we have to wait probably two years out to really find out about. But every time you open up the trial, of course, you reduce the statistical power of that trial. Luckily, we did design this trial for power even at 32 cases. You have to get 6 cases, and then you can look at the 6 cases and every 32 infections you've got. So we should be having quite a few infections to take a look at, and hopefully they'll let us open it up at 164.
Well, certainly Wall Street was excited. Last I looked, it was up like 2,000 points or something, So people are making money today in New York.
Well, I'll tell you, I had my doubts, and we all did in the community about Operation Warp Speed. We were doing a lot of things that kind of violated traditional rules and about what's normally done in clinical trials. My guess is we saved probably close to about 200 days in research, basic research, and we probably saved about 3 years in clinical development, and that's about that's almost 4 years of excess deaths at 400,000 a year projected, right? So that's 1.6 million people. If Wall Street wants to make some money on that, more power to them, because we saved a lot of lives if we really pulled this thing off. We're not 100% sure yet, but if we pull this off, it is a remark. It's actually kind of a dawn of a new age in medicine. It's a dawn of synthetic vaccines, a dawn of being able to, predictably inject new proteins, new protein machinery into your cells, which could solve all sorts of additional disease states, including, cystic fibrosis, among many others.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it really is remarkable. The mRNA is pointing this way. Basically, what we've done is we've overtaken the way bacteria infect us, and we've put that into our capabilities now. Almost predictably, which is remarkable.
So the other big question I wanted to ask you, obviously, with Saturday's call of the election, barring a Hail Mary from some lawsuit, and Hail Marys only work against the Detroit Lions, right? So it's looking pretty safe. So I mean, assuming there is a Biden administration, what do you think is going to change in the management of this pandemic come January 20th?
Well, if we have the 90% effective vaccine with the backstop, the heavy lifting's been done, frankly. I mean, that is just a huge change in our capability, huge change in our policy capabilities. It means that, we sort of have a light at the end of the tunnel, if you think about it. So before, we didn't know how long this period of partial vaccine was going to be, and how much how partial the vaccine would be, and how long that that period would last. Now that we have potentially a backstop, and it becomes much more a controllable, maybe even preventable vaccination-based disease, that means that we could potentially do a lot more in the short term to shore up people, knowing that we only have a certain amount of time remaining, right? All of a sudden, your whole philosophy, like, gosh, how much more stimulus do we have to put into the economy? How much more are we going to have to hold off with PPE and continue manufacturing? How much more are we going to have to expand our capabilities for surge capacity in healthcare? All those things pull money away from the more productive parts of the economy. And so, on the economic front, we're talking about a much faster route to recovery than I was projecting. I thought it would be early as 2023, mid 2023. It may be a year earlier than that for full economic recovery. And our vaccination, by vaccinating this many people, we may hit herd immunity already by mid 2022. Now, there's a big if there, and that is, believe it or not, even with 90% effectiveness of a vaccine, if only right now 30% of people are going to take that vaccine, and with a potential of 20% more joining the people who are questioning whether the vaccine is going to be safe and effective. If you do all the math, that's only 45% control, right? 50% times 90%, 45% control. So now the communication has to be, trust the science, look at the results. And I did put a couple of things together, actually. If you're interested, I could show them quickly,
Sure,
or we can just talk about the day. But there's a couple of things that might be helpful to share. And let me see if I can pull something up here that might be interesting for you guys to look at. This one, I think. Well, so can you see my screen all right?
Now we can.
Perfect. So here's sort of the way it looks like it may roll out. And I just need to get to a slideshow here. So it looks like we're going to have first dose in man, on an EUA basis, probably around January 1st, maybe even a week or two earlier than this, which means you get the second dose 21 days later. So, you're into the first group of, say, by the end of February, the first 20 million people will be injected in a series that's going to go from basically January until probably about mid-March. Now, if you think about it, you have to have a second dose 21 days later, and then you get immunogenicity. Actually, that was faster than I thought too. Immunogenicity actually occurs 7 days after the second dose. So all of a sudden, you're looking at kind of a mid to late March initial impact of the vaccine. Now, it's only 20 million people, so that's less than 5%, less than 6% of the population. So we've got a long way to go in terms of vaccination. What's interesting is that Johnson & Johnson comes through probably with a vaccine that's vector-based. Now, we don't know anything about how safe and effective the vector is yet. We do know that it was shut down. They shut it down themselves. It wasn't shut down by the FDA. It was not put on what they call clinical hold. It was just paused, what they call paused, a clinical pause by the sponsor, which is J&J, due to safety reasons. They seem to overcome those, as well as AstraZeneca. Now, the important thing about AstraZeneca and J&J is that they have a lot more capacity than Pfizer does, a lot more. And if you only have to have one dose before you get immunogenicity, you miss that 21 day plus the 7 days. So you're missing a whole month. You're getting to immunogenicity a month faster. Plus, they don't have the cold chain requirements that Pfizer does, which is a -70. So you can see that we're projecting 200,000 cases a day, kind of around January 12th, 15th. I think it's going to probably peak. But I mean, that's a lot of cases to start from, right? And so we still have a long haul this fall, but then we're going to start to see probably, as I said, as this chart shows, by October, November, maybe 120 million people, with some immunogenicity from the vaccine, and that will actually slow the vaccine down. And so we could drop, for next fall this time, we could be, well, even below 100,000 cases a day, even despite the peaking that we're having already, and the Thanksgiving and Christmas threats that we'll face next year at this time. So we could literally have the number of issues that we're having right now with COVID by this time next year. And certainly, hopefully by Easter next year, we're talking about getting to a point where normalcy, at least social normalcy, economic normalcy, is likely to be back. Maybe not complete health normalcy, because again, it depends so much on how many people take this vaccine.
Which brings me to my question: is
Yes.
how are is it going to be the frontline workers get it first, and then the senior citizens get it next, or how are they going to play that out?
That is a great question. So, and believe it or not, the answer to this changed because of the level of efficacy we're seeing. We have checked safety, but originally, oh, this is the wrong chart. Anyway, the blue dot should say 6%. So 6% of the vaccines will be generated by, it should say April. I should have this. I have this on a different slide. I apologize. By April, 6% of the population will be vaccinated. By September, approximately 33% of the population will be vaccinated. Then we'll have about 27% of the population done between kind of the 15th of September through the 1st of January, and then everyone else, like myself, who are between 18 and 64, that's 42% of the population, will probably be vaccinated after next Thanksgiving. That's the way it's going to roll out. Now, the reason that the number changes between now and before we knew what the efficacy was is because the better the efficacy is, the more you actually want to protect your most vulnerable. So in the past, we thought the efficacy was only about 60 to 70%. If you do all the math, it turns out that when you have 60 to 70%, the right people to inject are the ones who are most likely to transmit, and those are and get sick. Those are the frontline healthcare workers, which is why the original NAM, the National Association of Medicine recommendations, were for going after healthcare workers because we thought they'd be transmitting. Now that we know that efficacy may be as high as 90%, and that and especially Moderna vaccine will be safe for elderly, they actually have a larger elderly population in their population than Pfizer did on a percent basis. Now that we know something more about that, it's very likely that we'll actually be vaccinating a lot more of those who are over 65 and have at least one morbid condition that is likely to have a bad outcome if they were to contract COVID. Because we want to try to save as many of those very at-risk people as possible because it's so effective. Anyway, that's how the way the math works. And so this chart is now wrong because we will now change all of our numbers based on a new efficacy number. So I did change all those numbers for you, and I sadly opened the wrong file. So, the numbers I read off, 6% moving to 25%, moving to another 27%, and then the 42% at the end is correct. And the timing is earlier now. That 6% will be done April 1st. The 25% additionally would be the phase green. Phase 2 will be done around September. Phase gray will be done around Thanksgiving of next year, and then the rest of us will all get our vaccines probably late 2022. I'm sorry, late 2021 to early 2022. So that's that.
So but there's multiple vaccines that'll be out there. It won't just be the Pfizer. It'll be what?
Yes,
a lot of them, right?
Yeah. So basically, we've probably, well, now, we shouldn't get too excited, and I'm a technologist, so I love this stuff. But I think Moderna is likely to come through 2 weeks after Pfizer. That's about how much they're delayed. They have another. I'll show you quickly who's all coming out here. Here's what's coming out. Here you got Pfizer. You can see that they've got the ability to make slightly more than 1 billion doses, about 1.2 billion doses a year right now. Now they're going to escalate from that. Moderna has about the ability to make 1 billion doses a year. Those both use the same technology. That's the mRNA technology, as you know. And the problem with these vaccines is that they are very difficult to ship and scale. So basically, Moderna and Pfizer solutions are basically an OECD or organization. These are for advanced countries who can actually transport a minus and succeed in the -70-degree environment. What's interesting is you see that the scale of AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca has a capability to do 6 billion doses a year.
Wow.
The vector-based vaccine, they're gonna be able to close out their studies by the end of the year. Now, the vector-based vaccines have a much more challenging safety profile in some ways than Moderna and Pfizer. Now that we know that they're so efficacious, but they, traditionally these vector-based vaccines are quite a bit more efficacious because they're much more likely to stimulate the T cells. The T cells are much better for durability and for the T cells actually neutralize or have a much better neutralizing capability. So you can see AstraZeneca, J&J, and Russia and Merck are all coming through with vector-based vaccines. The reason that Merck's is so interesting is they've got a capacity of almost 3 billion vaccines a year, and it's an intranasal spray. So we may actually see some improved efficacy and a much better transportability than an intramuscular vaccine. And then you see Novavax and Sanofi. They'll be opening up their Novavax said early 2021. Now these you can see that they're working with Takeda, so they've got about a 2 billion vaccine capacity, and they could also add to the mix, and that'll be a different kind of profile vaccine. The way we look at vaccines is basically along these four parameters, right? You look at safety, you look at effectiveness, you look at scalability, and look at durability. So we were looking at scalability. How easy is it to get big? And the answer is, if you already have existing manufacturing capacity of 6 billion doses like AstraZeneca does, if it comes through, it's a huge impact. If it fails, it's also a huge impact because it means we're not going to get to our 13 billion doses. It's almost half the worldwide capacity we're looking at. We'd have to wait for an Indian producer to come through for us at that level of vaccine capability. But if you look at safety, here are some of the things so we haven't opened we don't know the answer yet. I mean, there's only 13 people in the world that actually know the answers. That's the review board that looked at this and opened up the data sets. So when this data becomes open, there's some questions you should ask yourself about which vaccine is going to be the best for you, right? The first question is about safety, because you don't want to take something that's going to get put you over the hump in terms of an adverse event that could be worse than the disease itself. And so you want to look at the absolute level of serious adverse events. And they rank serious adverse events on a scale of 1 to 5 based on whether or not you've had to go to the doctor, how bad the adverse event is. If you have to go see a doctor, you're at a 4 or 5. Most of the adverse events that have come through are 3 or less, but they are significant, especially after that second dose for Pfizer. You really get shakes, chills, fevers. It's 1 or 2 days of being out. And if we have to do this every 6 months, as Matt said, or every year because it's not terribly durable, people are going to start to say, God, I don't know if I want to go through that again. Well, I know, but basically that's going to be your ticket to go see grandmother. It's going to be your ticket to go on the air flights. It's going to be your ticket to go on cruise ships. It's going to be valuable. So maybe every 6 months is okay. It's also going to be, reasonably expensive, $20 a shot, which for some people, starts to add up if you're doing it quite often. The next question is, how inclusive was the trial, right? So how impactful was the inclusion-exclusion criteria of the trial? Did they start to exclude people who weren't like you? Do they start to exclude certain populations who were elderly, had special conditions? And you'll see that there weren't any people who were tested, for example, who were under the age of 12. No one's been tested yet who is getting dialysis. No one's been tested yet for people who are immunocompromised and on those kinds of cancer chemotherapy treatments. No pregnant females have been injected, or people who are thinking about getting pregnant. So those people have been excluded. So if you're in that group, you want to say, maybe this one isn't. I'll wait. I'll wait till I get it right. And then if you got broad demographic eligibility, here the question is the region of the country, which vaccine strains you're looking at, and so on, right? And then you want to make sure that they have low thresholds and types of adverse events they were actually tracking and looking and put into their statistical tables, or something that is meaningful for you. And then how long did they have the safety data? Now, we will have 2 months safety data. In other words, half of the population who's been injected will have gone through at least 2 months of of looking and observing. These people who are on these trials actually have a phone, and they report in how they're feeling every couple of days on their what they call patient-reported outcome system. If you have an adverse event or not feeling good, you report it immediately, because that's especially important, because if you come down with a symptom of COVID, they want to know that and put you into the study of saying, hey, we may be able to prove efficacy here if you weren't injected with the real vaccine. So what's interesting about the duration of safety is normally, for this kinds of vaccines, we would probably take a year to 2 years of looking at safety before we made it broadly available to everybody. So welcome. In this case, we'll only have 2 months. Now, usually most safety profile problems come in after 42 days. So that's a good thing. We'll have 60 days. But the WHO wants 90 days. So most of the rest of the world will wait until they have 90 days of safety data before they take this vaccine. We'll do it after 60. So you may want to wait a little while longer, make sure the safety data is coming through, and because we're only looking at 164 patients so far who are who are actually testing positive at the end of the trial. Then effectiveness. You want to take a look at the effectiveness question. And one of the questions is, did it reduce the severity and the duration of the symptoms? So how severe your symptoms were, if we're able to get those down, we can actually reduce hospitalizations. And that's significant, because right now, 10 of our states have more hospitalizations than they've had ever before today, than ever before so far in the 9 months we've had this disease. We got 10 million active cases right now. That's a lot to work with. And if all those people start going to the hospital because you didn't reduce severity, that's going to be an issue, and it could overwhelm the health system and cause huge amounts of excess death, as we know. So that endpoint, that what they call clinical endpoint, is really critical. The reduction of transmission is even more important, because if you're able to reduce transmission of the virus, you actually have a logarithmic impact on the transmission of the disease and the expansion of the disease. If you don't do that, and all you do is reduce the symptomology, then you still have the same transmission. You still can start to get to those very vulnerable populations pretty easily. So that's going to be important. And then, of course, the baseline and the thresholds in the trial are really going to be important. So those are the safety efficacy pieces that we'll start to get to know quite a bit by the end of this month. Scalability. Don't forget this drug will only be available at the Pfizer vaccine will only be available to portions of the U.S. because of the cold chain. They only have 1 billion doses a year manufactured. We need 13 billion on a global basis. We'll only have the first 100 million doses for free. After that, it's going to become charged. It'll be charged as much as we contracted for. And we want, the booster shot is going to be a significant question, how durable this is, and whether we need to, because if you think about it, if you need a booster, it means you've halved your capacity, right? So when J&J comes by and says we've got an ability to make 1 billion doses, that's 1 billion vaccinations that are done. When Moderna says that, it's only 500 million doses that are done. So that booster shot really makes a big impact. And then, of course, the durability. Do you have persistent high titer levels of neutralizing antibodies? We'll start to know that over the course of a year or two. That's going to take. These studies continue on and have review points at day 365 and day 700 and 20, whatever it is, 1 year and 2 year basis after you've taken the vaccine. We'll have those data at that point. And one of the questions that people bring up, some people have allergic reactions to adjuvants. A number of these, like Moderna, like Pfizer, those vaccines do require adjuvants. So if you have allergic reaction to some of the mercuric and other adjuvants they put in, then you might want to watch that as well. So that's some of the things to think about when you see the clinical trial results when they start to come out at the end of the month. You'll see Pfizer's full results. You'll see Moderna by the end of this month. See Pfizer's full results. You'll see Moderna's interim results. You will see in January AstraZeneca's interim results, J&J's interim results by the end of January, and then you'll start to see Novavax and Sanofi and Merck's interim results in March, April. That's a lot of vaccines coming through the pipeline.
Okay, we got
But
about 2
in the
minutes
meantime,
left.
yeah, in the meantime, we dare not let down our guard though, right? In terms of social
No,
distancing and all
please,
that
yeah,
stuff.
it's a great reason to celebrate, but we won't have, this will not be an impact that's felt this year. It'll be an impact that's felt, as I said, probably starting this time next year. So we're celebrating now, but be careful all the way through this time next year at least, with NPI, with continued distancing, with hygiene and hand washing. Those are really what we have to offer at this point. And the vaccine's coming, which is great news.
All right. Well, we got about a minute left. So, Fred, how do people reach out to you if they want to get more information? Oh, and you alluded to being on a transition team. There's only one transition I'm aware of. So, does that mean you're going to be working with the Biden administration?
Well, I don't put myself in any particular administration. I've been trying to help out every administration, but I am trying to help a number of governments who are trying to transition right now at the state and national level. And yes, to the extent that I can help the U.S. nationally, I'd love to do it. Frankly, some of our states are going to have bigger challenges than the national government, just because they're going to be responsible for ultimately deciding who gets the vaccine in their states. The national government will say, here are your vaccines, and the states will have to actually distribute. And those systems and those capabilities are challenged in a lot of states.
Okay.
Traditional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.